Why the world would not be a better place with no racial disparities.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Okay, so I would say, if I were to do this, which I don't, I would say that racial disparities should still exist because it would result in the preservation of diverse and unique cultures. Within human nature, different cultures exist, and racial disparities, culture is a part of that. Therefore, between races, in which many cultures may identify with their race, we can preserve that because that can be defined as a racial disparity.
Where are we?
Florida.
Good enough. And what are we doing in Florida, by the way?
Living?
I'll take that. That's a great answer. Okay. College DEI programs should be abolished. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Strongly agree. Why do you strongly agree with that?
Because college DEI programs are inherently racist, and it is obvious that we should ban these programs completely. Strongly agree is the only way to go because we can't kind of abolish them.
A lot of DEI programs have been proven to be largely ineffective at actually targeting systemic racism, and they actually just put more emphasis on race that can diminish student environment, and a lot of schools have seen a decrease in minority enrollment.
I'm going to be honest. I thought this was the disagree side, so I'm going to go over there.
Perfect. Tell them what your reasons are for that.
Okay, so DEI programs are not limited to race. So any type of criticism of it by just saying, oh, it's just racist is entirely flawed because you're not recognizing the entire scope of diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? There's been a DEI program. There's a lot of different definitions. I think, personally, we should actually define what a DEI program is before we begin answering this question, but...
All right, let's do that. What is it? How do you define it?
It is a program that attempts to address some type of systemic inequality in any way, regardless of whether or not it's related to race, by affecting, in this specific case, scholarships or college admissions.
What do you mean by systemic?
That there are issues within the system, present within the system, that makes it harder for a student to achieve academic excellence at the same level that somebody who may be benefited by the system would.
Okay, so I'm coming to you in a second. I think your point of defining it is good. Okay. Can you give them an example of what systemic would be as opposed to a non-systemic disparity in outcome? Like, what would be causally responsible for that?
I would say income. I would say if you're in an incredibly poor neighborhood, you may have less access to things such as AP classes or IB classes, which are paid for, right? You need to pay for them. Therefore, you're going to have less academic opportunities. If you're poor, then your parents may have more trouble trying to drive you around to get to extracurriculars, therefore resulting in less academic opportunities.
Okay. Not did you agree with him, but did you understand?
I understood.
Do you agree?
No.
Okay. What is the point of disagreeing? Is there a flaw in his reasoning or an empirical fact that he left out or what have you?
Not so much a flaw in his reasoning, but more so that DEI is discrimination based off of gender, sexual orientation, race, or ethnicity, and that's just purely unconstitutional within the United States.
Is it morally wrong?
I would agree to that being morally wrong.
Did you agree with his position, but did you understand it?
I did understand his position.
Do you agree?
I do not agree about what he said. I feel like the point about minorities being disproportionately affected by wealth, while that is true, that doesn't disregard the fact that there are poor white people or poor people who aren't minorities. Like, you can't just say that, oh, because they're poor, they need more help. Like, of course they do need more help, but that doesn't negate the fact that people who are not minorities still face these problems as well.
Okay, everybody go back to the neutral line, please. Systemic racism exists. Move. Oh, sorry. Okay, all right, grab a board. Write down your best reason for believing that. I want you to take a guess at what her best reason is.
I'd say she said something related to the 14th Amendment, that legally within the United States there is no basis of racial discrimination.
Did you say something related to the 14th Amendment?
No.
Okay, guess his best reason that he has written.
that there are isolated examples of people who have experienced systemic racism, therefore it exists.
Is that what you wrote? Is that the best reason you have?
No.
Okay, I'm going to give you one more guess.
Okay, I believe that she said that is because there can be both rich and privileged African Americans and people of minority groups, and there can also be poor people of traditionally privileged groups.
Is that the best? Is that the reason you have?
Far off.
Okay, I'm going to give you one more guess, and we're going to go to them. What is the best reason he has written down for that?
Because of the racism that existed in the past, it has carried on to the businesses and the government, and it has not been abolished, therefore creating systemic racism.
Is that the reason that you have written down?
It is most certainly. I did say due to the racism in the past. I'm not saying that it's just the active decision of the business.
So is it the reason you have down, yes or no?
Not exactly.
Is it better than the one you have down?
No.
Okay. All right. Whose did you pick?
I picked hers.
What do you think she has?
So essentially, I said that she said that systemic racism does not exist because there's not a single law in America that discriminates against minorities, and that is exactly what systemic racism is.
Is that correct? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Okay. Who did you pick?
I picked her.
What did she? What is her reason?
I think her reasoning is that in the 21st century, we've moved past general racism, racist stereotypes, and that we have legislation protecting minorities.
Is that correct?
No?
Okay. Share with them your reason.
Okay, so you were all
Turn it around so they
you
show
guys
it.
were all kind of right. So we have abolished systemic racism by giving people equal rights and creating a more supportive culture.
Okay. Show her. Show them, but her in particular. You read it, please, if you don't mind.
Segregation put black and minority communities in a worse position economically as a starting point. Racial inequalities still exist within capitalism.
Everybody go to the neutral line, please. The world would be a better place with no racial disparities. The world would be a better place with no racial disparities. Wow. So pick someone there and have them steel man it, or yourself.
We'll send him.
Okay? Your job is to strongly disagree, present the best argument you can as a debater at Incubate Debate for why the world would not be a better place with no racial disparities.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Okay, so I would say, if I were to do this, which I don't, I would say that racial disparities should still exist because it would result in the preservation of diverse and unique cultures. Within human nature, different cultures exist, and racial disparities, culture is a part of that. Therefore, between races, in which many cultures may identify with their race, we can preserve that because that can be defined as a racial disparity.
Anybody want to comment on that or attempt to rebut or refute?
So why would that make the world a better place? You're just saying by making people poor, we're making the world a better place because it promotes culture. There's other ways to promote culture. There's food, how cities are built, what people like to do during the day, celebrations, family holidays. Like that also contributes to culture. You can't just say that this one defining feature defines an entire culture. Just because I'm Mexican doesn't mean that all of my uncles work in construction and are disproportionately affected by, being poor because they work in construction. That doesn't mean that that's what makes me Mexican. What makes me Mexican is my family, my heritage, and what we do over the holidays. It doesn't mean that just because we might be disproportionately affected by the system, that makes us Mexican.
I'm going to give you a quick rebuttal.
I agree with you. Yes, we should not be disproportionately affected. It just simply asks about racial disparities. I would say racial disparities can exist within cultures. I am German. I do not identify with Mexican culture. That is because that is a racial disparity. I am German. You are Mexican. That is a difference. I am not talking about systemic racism. I'm not saying we should oppress people because it helps culture. That is not what I said.
Okay, everybody go back to the neutral. Next claim. A purely meritocratic society will inevitably produce disparities. Look at me. A purely meritocratic society will inevitably produce disparities. Wow. All right. Okay. Erase, and write your best reason for believing that.
The best reason Marley probably has is to say that in a purely meritocratic society, it'll be based entirely on merit and not on race. Thus, there will be no racial disparities because everything will be based on merit and not on race.
Is that your reason?
She is quite accurate, yeah.
Really? All right. Turn it around and show her and read it if you don't mind.
Meritocracy does not include disparities, racial disparities in system. CLT states, that basically means if we have enough people, central limit theorem states we will have a normal distribution, i.e. no disparity between different racial and ethnic groups.
In a single sentence, what is CLT?
Central limit theorem, with a very large amount of people in a population, there will be similarities between groups and their distribution.
Okay, guess her best reason for believing that.
I would say that she agrees that a meritocratic society would produce disparities because she would say that it's just kind of up to chance.
Is that your best reason?
Slightly, I would say that in a purely meritocratic...
Wait, yes or no?
No.
What is your best reason for standing on the strongly agree?
My best reason is that people are inherently racist, thus they're going to have their own inherent biases. So he is kind of right that it is up to chance, but I'm saying that it's up to human nature more like that there are going to be racial disparities.
Okay. Did you understand their arguments?
Yes.
Did you understand their arguments?
Yes.
Did anything that she said persuade you to move one mat to the left?
Sort of, that we all have inherent bias and inherent racial bias. Kind of.
So if the answer is yes, you can move. Is there anything she said that convinced you to move one mat to the left?
Well, I already moved, so I guess so.
You can move again if you want. It's a free state. Okay. And now I'm going to come back to you again. Is there anything that he said that can convince you to move back?
That a little bit, that in an equal society, everybody would start off on the same footing and everyone would be on kind of the same footing with merit. And so we wouldn't have as much discrimination and people would kind of be, there'd be more equality.
Is that a sufficient reason to justify you moving to slightly agree?
I don't think so. I think personal bias is too big of a reason.
Okay. Is there anything that he said that convinced you to move one mat to the right to slightly disagree?
No.
Okay, put down your boards and everybody go back to the neutral. Systemic racism requires discriminatory laws. Systemic racism requires discriminatory laws. Racial quotas for college admissions is immoral. Move. Okay. What caused you to move?
Honestly, I thought about it a little bit more, and I think that racial quotas are in some way, although immoral, still an okay solution that doesn't address the full problem, but it still does kind of address the general trends the problem creates.
Okay, everybody go back to the neutral, please. Humans are born with basically a blank slate. Move. Yeah. Okay, everybody go back to the neutral, please. Same question we started with, and now we're going to put a little twist on it. College DEI programs should be abolished. Move. Weren't you over there before? No, it's good. So you moved. What caused you to move to strongly disagree?
Because Maverick, he presented a really good argument, and initially I was a little iffy on the side that I was on. I do believe that there are issues in DII programs, but on the most part, I feel like their intentions are good and reform is definitely needed. But students, especially in college, when they're starting to develop their own thoughts and their own ideas, need to have a community, and I feel like DEI does provide that. Okay.
Are you on the same mat?
I moved from slightly disagree to disagree.
What caused you to move?
I do genuinely understand, like, Ms. Reyes's point. There are a lot of ways that you would want to say, like, yeah, it's racist, it's bad, you don't want it. But the more I discussed it and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I actually do think it's an okay solution to the problem.
Because of something someone said, or or why? Like, what was the causally responsible for the move?
Honestly, I feel like it was kind of what Ms. Reyes said about natural human biases, right? It is in human nature sometimes to discriminate against someone else. We should take action to try and make sure that that is not the case and that is not what reflects in a meritocratic society.
Okay. Were you on the agree mat?
I was on the strongly agree mat.
So you moved to the agree. Why?
Because I understand DEI programs were intended for good and are intended for good, and I think that a lot of them involve overcoming adversity among minorities, and I think that's an important thing for colleges to consider in admission.
Okay. And were you on the strongly agree mat?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask everybody this question as a final question. What would cause you to move? What evidence or reason would you have to hear to move you to the agree?
So I was very close to actually moving to the agree when I heard, I believe, the point from him saying that that depending on someone's race, they may be economically disadvantaged. But then I remembered that DEI is not affirmative action. Once everyone gets into college, they all start on the same place. And saying that someone needs a boost because of their race is saying that they cannot get there on their own merit. Because once everyone gets into college, because DEI will not help them get into college, that was already abolished. Once everyone's there, they get a clean slate. They're starting from the same place, and saying that because you're of a certain race, you can't get there on your own is inherently racist and is going to create a divide between the people of America.
Okay. So, but what would cause you to move? Unless you said it and I didn't catch it.
Nothing good.
Nothing at all.
No, unfortunately.
Okay. So let's say that I asked her that question. What would cause you to move to the disagree? And she said nothing at all. What would you say to her?
I would say that we need to look at the facts. We need to distinguish from affirmative action and DEI and see if it's really if we are really a just society if we let DEI continue in college campuses.
Okay. What would cause you to move to the strongly agree?
If there was more evidence showing that people specifically were directly being discriminated against, as far to showing that people of a majority race, ethnicity were being completely and directly discriminated against, and it was seriously putting them at a disadvantage.
And what would cause you to move to the slightly agree?
If there was evidence showing that minorities were seriously societally disadvantaged.
Okay. What would cause you to move to the strongly disagree?
Strongly disagree. I believe what would cause me to move even further in that direction would be some level of proof that there is actual, genuine, active anti-minority discrimination within the United States. I feel like obviously then it would be a no-brainer to say that we need to counteract that. Like, currently the argument is that there isn't really active discrimination against minorities and that it's more or less a systemic issue, right? If somebody were to prove that it is not rooted in systemic issues, right? That it really is just racism, like active hatred of minorities that was causing these disparities, then of course I'd move over there because then it'd just be a matter of fighting against people who are actively discriminating.
And what would cause you to move to the slightly disagree?
I believe if somebody were to prove to me, give me better information that America truly is meritocratic. If somebody were to give me information that proved against systemic racism, that proved different faults within the causes of systemic racism that I believe in, I would move all the way to strongly agree.
Okay. And what would cause you to move to the disagree?
What would cause me to move to the disagree is just more substantial evidence, more widespread across America on how DEI actually impacts students and the sentiment of students on campus. So not
Yeah, how, when you say how, like what do you mean how?
like climate, like campus climate, like how students are feeling on campus. And I don't want it to be like just one school. I want it to say across America or across a certain state at least that students are feeling that these DEI programs are hurting them.
Okay, cool. Give them a round of applause. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This falls under the umbrella of my nonprofit, National Progress Alliance. Your generous donations keep us going and help fuel content like this. We truly appreciate your support. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.